we should undo independent redistricting commissions and eliminate 10 Republican states in California as one possible fucking idea, which I think you can't actually do because it was passed by ballot initiative, but you get my point. But the other thing, just not to be overly dark about this, but this is a poll of ungerrymandered districts. We don't even know how gerrymandered districts are.
That's what I'm saying.
Right. This is best case scenario, people.
We got a lot of problems.
But I think the other messaging question here is, and I think this will lead us into our next topic, is should we spend money and time and energy advertising what Democrats have done to make your life better, or should we spend time and energy advertising what Republicans would do to make it worse?
Great segue. So in an effort to be constructive, instead of just us worrying out loud, we conducted a poll with our friends at Data for Progress where we asked people how they felt about a bunch of shit Republicans have done over the last few years. Here was the list. Striking down sections of the Voting Rights Act and making it harder to vote. Packing the judiciary with right-wing judges. Cutting taxes for the rich. Blocking action on climate change. Trying to build a border wall. Supporting Trump. Repeating the big lie. Voting to overturn the 2020 election. And encouraging violent protests at the U.S. Capitol on January 6th. Here are the top 5 things that people disapprove of the most from that poll. Number 1, inciting insurrection, 70%. Comforting, that's number 1. Number 2, tax cuts for the rich, 58% disapproval. Number 3, attacking voting rights, 57% disapproval. Number 4, climate denialism, 55% approval. And number 5, spreading the big lie, 54% disapproval. What do you think about those results, and is there a message somewhere in there? Because that was a lot of different things.
What I think this poll proves is that there is a huge opportunity to brand the Republicans in a negative light for voters. Generic Republican is not the anvil around the neck of the Republicans on the ballot that it can be and should be. And I don't think this poll yet answers the question of exactly what that should be, but it is very clear to me from looking at this, and I recognize that I am doing the thing where I look at a poll and use it to confirm all of my prior opinions, but that it shows that, it's so strange, that there is, people do not like Republicans. People would like Republicans even less the more they knew about them, and they don't know enough about Republicans. And so I think there is, definitely, there are lots of opportunities here. I think what this poll shows is that there could be real benefit in a message that paints Republicans dramatically out of the mainstream. That's what a lot of this is, right? Is that it's radical Republican is essentially the framework we would use of, big lie, don't believe in the science around climate change, hang out with people like Marjorie Taylor Greene and Matt Gaetz. That is one narrative about the party that would, I think, have some impact with voters, particularly voters who maybe voted for Biden at the top of the ticket and a Republican on the congressional or Senate level, that they could be persuaded that this party is a lot more Trump-like than they thought.
Yeah, I should have said there were 2 things on that list that I left out, which was we also tested Matt Gaetz' scandal and Marjorie Taylor Greene's comparisons of the House mask mandate to the Holocaust. And, of course, the disapproval for both of those was off the charts. But I didn't sort of include it because I seriously doubt that a Democrat running against a Republican in some far-flung district is going to somehow successfully tie that specific Republican to what Matt Gaetz or Marjorie Taylor Greene did. You can, of course, call them out for not calling out Matt Gaetz or condemning Matt Gaetz and Marjorie Taylor Greene, right? You can say, you're part of this party. You didn't say, I think that's fine. You can do that. But I doubt that's sort of a larger strategy available to the party to just pick out 2 scandals and make a bigger thing about it.
Can I just push on that for a sec?
Sure, yeah.
Do you think the Republican strategy of putting AOC, Ilhan Omar, which is obviously an incredibly misogynistic and racist approach, or in using Nancy Pelosi for decades as the face of the Democratic Party, do you think that worked for them? And if it did work for them, why wouldn't it work for us?
I don't think there's a ton of evidence that worked for them. I think that they were able, so in 2018, they did this a lot, and it certainly didn't work for them in 2018. Obviously, in 2020, they did much better in the House than we thought they would. I think there may have been success at there may have been some success framing the Democratic Party as more liberal or potentially more radical as a party than its standard bearer, Joe Biden. I don't know that specific attacks on AOC or Ilhan Omar sort of translated to some of these districts. I think some of the policy positions could have, some of the policy positions that some Democrats or some activists staked out could have worked for Republicans. But I think the people themselves it's a little bit. I just think a voter, it's Joe Smith versus Sally, and you're like, and Joe Smith has nothing to do with Marjorie Taylor Greene and Matt Gaetz, and you spend a whole campaign saying, oh, but they're going to be in the same party as this person who did X. Like, I don't know that it works as well on either side, Democrat or Republican.
I think I agree with that. I certainly think the individual people are what they are. It's a little of what you think was the more important part. Was it radical socialists defund the police, or in the Pelosi case over the years, Hollywood liberals? And Republicans, we should be very clear, it works more with their voters because they're weaponizing race and gender. And that is an effective tactic for them with a lot of their voters. We saw that with Hillary Clinton. We've seen it with Barack Obama.
That is correct. I agree with that.
But there are I think there's a nuance to maybe having some avatars for that radicalism. It's not it's not saying QOP or Party of Q. I think that sells the voter short. It sort of treats them as idiots, which is never a good political strategy in our opinion. But there is some sense of having some people who get a lot of press attention who are kind of scary to the voters we want is not the worst thing.
I think that's right. But I think where we probably agree is branding Republicans in general as extremists, and there's a lot of supporting evidence for that, is going to be effective. And I think that does span the gamut from everything that happened around the 2020 election, the insurrection, overturning the results, the big lie, to climate change denialism, continuing to support tax cuts for the richest American as the middle class is falling behind, right? I think that's what we're seeing in this poll is that when Republicans have staked out more extremist positions, people are more likely to disapprove of them, which is not fucking lightning bolt, not the biggest revelation, but it's worth remembering. And I also think it's worth noting, too, that, it was not in that top five is supporting Donald Trump, which I thought was kind of interesting. And yet the big lie, supporting the insurrection, attacking voting rights, those were all in the top five. So I do think it might be a tempting shorthand to say, and we do this all the time, these are Trump Republicans, they're just like Trump, it's a clone of Trump. I think you have to go a little bit further and say why they're like Trump, what positions they hold that are like Trump, what they have said and done that is like Trump, and not just expect people to believe that every Republican is like Trump and supporting Trump is automatically disqualifying, unfortunately.
Yeah, Trump is such a unique figure in terms of personality and presence and just overt stupidity that it is sometimes hard to it really is hard. You have some relatively generic college Republican Fox News green room lunatic running for Congress somewhere, and it's sort of, they don't seem like Donald Trump. He is just this figure with this long history and presence. But Trumpism, right? And you don't have to call it Trumpism, but the ideas that lie at the heart of it that predate